we just kept saying it over and over. And now all of us don't say, yeah, give us a call. We say, shoot us a text. And I think that's the key, is that every person has to say that.
Hey there, everybody. It's Dr. Glenn Krieger here with another episode of the Orthopreneurs Podcast. Today, coming to you from snowy West Chicago. No, it's not snowing at all. With Dr. Bob Skopek. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, Glenn. And actually, it was snowing yesterday.
Was it really?
It was.
Wow. And we're recording this on July 18th. That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's normal. That's normal.
No, it's not July 18th. You'll just have to figure out when this was. I was joking with him, like, Bob Skopek is about as good of a name as you're going to have if you live in the Chicago area. Like, it's a good name. I like that. But you're all in for a major treat today, because this is a man who's living on the edge of technology. He's a pioneer. He's doing things with technology that we're going to learn about over the next, whatever amount of time. And hopefully some of this will be an inspiration for many of you to push further ahead of where you already are, and for other people to sort of maybe dip their toe in the water based upon your experiences. And so let's start, if you don't mind, Bob, with give us a little update about, 90 seconds or so, elevator speech. How did you end up where you are today?
Well, thanks for that compliment. It's interesting. I'm the first one in my family to go to college, which now as I'm older, I think has been a huge advantage for me. I mean, I had no preconceived notions on what it means to be a professional, what it means to be an orthodontist. Right. So my parents come from a very caring blue collar family who said, go to college, you'll get a better job. Right. So I went to college. I kind of figured it out. I was a science guy. I thought about med school. I thought about engineering. Dentistry seemed to be a great fit. I practiced general dentistry for a few years. And I always loved the diagnosis and treatment planning more than I loved having a drill in my hand. And I had the grades to get into ortho. And I just love that strategizing and being more the architect than the mechanic. And that's why I went to ortho. And it's a perfect fit for me. I love ortho.
Beautiful. And as you heard me say earlier to everybody, you practice near Chicago, correct?
Yes. We're a northwest suburb. We're about 35 miles from downtown Chicago.
Nice. A great area. Sure snows there a lot, I'll say that. I know that from experience. And how many practices do you currently have?
Well, I currently have one with one under construction. And I've always been that one doctor, one location, busy practice philosophy. And I've done that for 20 years. And quite honestly, that's worked quite well for me. I had a 3.5, 4-day-a-week practice that was about all I wanted to do. And I had always thought, if I can do the one location, one doctor, and stay busy, why would I mess with more overhead? Why would I mess with more, headaches? Right. At this point now, I'm expanding a bit.
Gonna mess with overhead? Gonna mess?
Well,
I kid.
The thing is, we're not getting any younger.
No.
and I'm starting to think about, the legacy and the transition. And, I've had a really good 20 years of being, go to good old Bob. He's great. He'll take care of you. I've been that guy in town. But as we know, that's fleeting for all of us. I mean, it doesn't happen forever. No. So I'm starting to think of where I'm going to transition, how I'm going to transition, and how I hopefully will leave a legacy.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because if you're on the online forums a lot, you get the opportunity to see a lot of people interacting. And the overwhelming majority, I wouldn't say all, because folks like you and I belong online, right? We're members of the community. But if you look at it, the average person who's commenting on a day-to-day basis, average, is an orthodontist somewhere between ages 29, 30, and 40. Somewhere in that 29 to 42, 43. That's like 2 standard deviations, at least, of who's there. And, there's a couple of things you just don't learn when you're 40 years old, necessarily, which is gray hair often means a lot of mistakes that you've learned from, right? That's not, or receding hairline in my case, right? It's gray hair and losing hair. It tells you you've made a lot of mistakes. And you start thinking about, there's more life behind you potentially than there is ahead. I'm 54. Unless I live to 108,
Right.
I always joke about, like, these are my halcyon days, so to speak, right? Like, you've got an income, you're financially independent. You can go buy anything you pretty much want. Your health is still there, knock on wood, right? And as you round into your 60s and 70s, of course, financially, you'll probably be more stable. But, are you going to travel as much? Are you going to be as healthy? You never know what the future holds. And so, yeah, a legacy starts to become a big issue.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, success means something different to every one of us. And that's, as I've gotten older, my youngest just graduated college about a year ago.
Congratulations.
So, well, thank you. So not only did I get a raise, but, both of our kids are on their own. And I really feel like I'm personally in that sweet spot in my life where I've done enough that I know a few things, but I'm still young enough that I'm excited about what I do, especially doing things differently now. I mean, I'm more excited now than I was when I started my own. I was a startup in 2000. So I'm in that sweet spot. And I'm like hitting my second childhood, except I'm smarter. And I love that. Love that.
I agree. It's interesting. There was a great podcast I was listening to recently by somebody who I really love, Gary Vaynerchuk. He's been a mentor to me. He's given me some great advice. And while he's not for everybody, he made a great point. He's unabashedly honest. He's brutal, but he really does care about people a ton. And one of the comments he made, which I give to my kids now, because his advice I've always given to my kids because he resonates with them. He said, the idea that at 22, you should start figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life, right? Or even 18. It comes from a time when people retired at 55 or 60, right? You were 22, you worked 30, 35 years, and then you retired, and you lived 10, 15 years, and you died. And he said the idea that today the average human being in America, at least, is living to almost 80 years of age. Now, that's average. That takes into account people who died earlier, people who died later. He says to think that at 22, you need to know what you're doing. At 30, I went back to ortho at 44, right? And so, it's interesting. We start thinking about our second life. And his belief was that the average millennial will have 3 careers, 3 full careers. Right? I did mine as a general dentist for 20 years. I'm doing ortho now. I'm, 7.5 years into ortho. It wouldn't be unimaginable to me in my 60s if I did 15, 20 years in ortho and then chose to go on to a third career. What you're saying resonates with me a lot, Bob.
Well, the interesting thing is I've graduated ortho, finished ortho in 95. And I feel like I'm in a completely different career now, even though I'm still doing ortho. I mean, because when I started, again, it was, the 100 patients a day, lining them up all over the place. I had 11 chairs, braces and wires all day long. I mean, now I'm clear aligner ortho, remote monitoring, and outsourcing. And that feels like a completely different career to me, to be honest with you, even though I'm still doing the same technical orthodontic treatment that I always did. And all of this comes back to doing great technical ortho. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I did the entire Pankey curriculum as an orthodontist. I'm very, very attuned to doing good clinical work. But if you want to own your own business, as you know, and what this group's all about, you have to think about running the business. And I feel like I'm in a whole new career now than I was 15 years ago. And Amen. It's awesome.
Amen. By the way, if this were a drinking game, every time anybody says Pankey, you'd have to have a drink, right? Like, I don't even know if most orthodontists know what the Pankey Institute is, but kudos to you. It was Key Biscayne, I think, right? He's down in Key Biscayne, started by LD Pankey, who is a master. If you haven't read LD Pankey's book, everybody should read LD Pankey's book because it was brilliant in terms of helping people understand the vision, the mission. Can't sell what's not on your shelf. Still remember that one. Mm-hmm. I was a big fan when I was a restorative doc. So way to pull that one out. Appreciate it. And talking about legacy, last thing I'll mention about that, there was a really great story in the early 60s, late 50s in a column somewhere in, I think, Hollywood. And they were talking about Hugh O'Brien. You ever hear of Hugh O'Brien?
No.
I never heard of Hugh O'Brien.
No.
But apparently Hugh O'Brien was an actor, pretty well thought of actor, apparently. But there were they talk about the 5 stages of an actor's career back then. And this for me resonates. And I don't know if it, I mean, again, you've been practicing 20 years. Maybe it means something to you, maybe it doesn't. But what they said was the first stage of your career is, who is Hugh O'Brien, right? Nobody's heard of you. Nobody knows who you are. And you can completely tie this to an orthodontist without question. You know, who is Hugh O'Brien? The second stage of your career is, get me Hugh O'Brien, the next star of our picture, right? Now you're becoming a somebody. Now everybody kind of knows who you are. The third stage was, you're so big and doing what you're doing that they have to say, get me somebody who's a Hugh O'Brien type, right? Like, you know, your practice is so big, you can't get people in for 2-3 weeks. You got to hire more associates or hire more staff, get bigger and bigger. And then it becomes, get me a young Hugh O'Brien, right? Now you're, oh, him, he's getting older, you know? And then there's the last stage, which is where you started, which is, who is Hugh O'Brien? Right? And it's such a great, I've never forgotten this. I learned this years ago. It's such a really, really good story to remember. No matter how big you are, if I mention the name Morty Amsterdam, for instance, or D. Walter Cohen, to a new, or a Slick Van Arsdale, for instance, to somebody who's graduating from school today, they may very well look at me and go, who were these people?
Right.
And they were the giants of dentistry and orthodontics 40, 50 years ago. And so anybody out there who believes that people will remember who you are forever and ever and ever, that your practice will continue getting bigger and bigger if you don't innovate, just remember Hugh O'Brien. You'll never forget it.
Well, and the thing you remember too, like most of us, when we started, if we built up a successful practice, we probably affected other old guys' practices. Now I feel like I'm in that position where some young hotshot comes into town. They can affect me at this point. You know, it's great to build this thing, but you're right. It's not going to last forever. It just doesn't.
No, human nature is such that, you know, you work so hard to get to where you are. Unless, again, there are exceptions to rules, and I'm sure you're not one of them, where, you know, you took over a $3 million practice that was handed to you. You know, like these monstrous practices somebody gets into. Most people, the overwhelming majority of people, built their practice from either a smaller one or a parent. You brought them in and they built it even bigger, or a sibling. And you work and you work and you work and you work. And then, you know, finally you hit financial independence, and now it's like, well, maybe I'm going to start traveling more. Maybe I'll spend more time with the grandchildren. Maybe I'll spend more. And it's hard. And that's why kudos to you as we get into this next segment, for what you're doing. And I heard you, you know, you mentioned how you're opening, you know, you're going to be opening another practice shortly. I know that. You've transitioned from a team of, what did you say, 15?
15, 16.
11 chairs.
Yeah.
And now you're working how many?
Three staff. And we're working about 2 chairs. Well, maybe 3. 1 working chair with hand pieces, and then 2 chairs with recliners and scanners.
Right. So you went from a team of 15 and 11 chairs to a team of 3, and let's call it 3 chairs. We'll go crazy here, right? Yeah. And your revenue dropped by what percentage, Bob?
Well, my revenue almost doubled between the big staff and the little staff.
Yeah.
And there's, again, a lot of technology expense that got added to that. But yeah, my revenue's almost doubled. And I don't know, Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Work Week, you know, yeah. I love that book, and I've started to look now at more my income per hour.
Right.
And my income per hour is so much more than it ever was 10 years ago with that big staff. I mean, we were busy, working hard. It's now it's so much more efficient and productive. It's different, but it's so much more efficient and productive.
Well, let's talk about that. So, obviously we're going on the supposition, if you will, the basic tenet that the quality of care remains the same, right? We haven't changed anything there. So what are you doing these days? Give us some examples of what you've done to transition from, say, 11 chairs, 15 team members, to double your productivity with 3 team members and 3 chairs.
Well, the first thing is what you just said, is that the clinical care has to remain the same. And I'm now 93% clear aligner orthodontics. I don't like braces. I don't want to do braces, but I was Invisalign certified in 2000 when it came out. I did a lot of aligners back then. I put 90% of those people into braces to finish them up because I wouldn't do the job. And I've busted my ass the last 7-8 years to learn how to move teeth with plastic. And there's so many good instructors out there that know how to move teeth with plastic. And that was the first step for me, is if I'm going to do clear aligner orthodontics, I have to be able to do the same level of orthodontics that I can do with braces and wires.
Right.
So that was the first step for me. And that was a long, tough road. I've never been the smartest guy in the room. I'm in the room, but I'm not the smartest guy in the room. So I learned from all these smart guys about, how to move teeth with plastics. That was the first step. Second step was decreasing the time in the chair. And that's where we started the remote monitoring. And we've done remote monitoring now for a little over 4 years.
Okay.
And at this point, my average full 1.5 year case, we see about 5 or 6 times. We used to see them 18 to 20 times. So we've reduced the amount of time there in the office. Now, that required a lot of training, so we can build relationships through the screen, so we can build relationships virtually. We don't want people to think that we're like any other mail order. And that was part of the trick with that, is training the people we have and finding who's good at creating that relationship through the screen. Who's good at making these people feel like, yeah, you're still cared for and we're still here for you and we're watching you. So that was the second step, was remote appointments, not seeing that 80, 90 people a day coming in and having them stacked up. And then quite honestly, a lot of it's outsourcing the tasks. We outsource the exam calls. We're a texting office. I mean, we've eliminated probably 90% or more of our phone calls. We communicate through our dental monitoring app, Rhinogram app. We don't get voicemails much anymore. The phone doesn't ring. That's simplified things so much throughout the day. And I know we're here for OrthoFi, and that's where OrthoFi, I feel, is.
By the way, when he says we're here for OrthoFi, what he's referring to is OrthoFi is one of our lead sponsors for the Orthopreneur Summit. And when I asked them, hey, when you're a lead sponsor, you get an episode, a podcast episode, but it's not an episode where you just get to sit and talk about OrthoFi. But who do you guys got who's a doctor that has a great story, who could talk about OrthoFi, but also talk about a million other things? Guess who they gave me?
Was that me?
He wasn't available, so Bob Skopek stepped in.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, like I said, I've never been the smartest guy in the room.
Oh, come on. You've been in the room for a long time. You belong there.
Yeah.
But can we dive back into a few of the things you said?
Yeah.
Because you said so many pearls, so much gold just now that I think we need to dive into it a little bit.
Okay.
First, remote monitoring, right? You're a dental monitoring user, correct? It's okay
Correct.
to talk about product. I'm not selling anything here, so it's okay. When it came to dental monitoring, we've instituted it. When we came on board with Smile Doctors, we started using dental monitoring in our practice. And yeah, everybody would agree there's a time to learn, right? It takes a little bit of adjustment period. But you had 80 to 90 patients a day coming in. How are you handling it now? Do you have a dedicated individual who just watches it, or does your whole team monitor it? And how are you setting it up for those out there of us who are using it so that you're not getting bothered with a million false positives every single day, if you understand where I'm coming about?
Yes. Well, we have one person that's mainly in charge of it. But the other two can do it and they know how to work it. But we have one main, dental monitoring coordinator, the DMC, they want to call it. So she's the lead on it. But when she's on vacation for a week, we can take care of it. I mean, we know what we're doing with it. We've learned over time how to simplify a lot of the false positives, a lot of the the unseats on the lateral incisors with Invisalign.
If I ever see another unseated lateral incisor for the rest of my life, yeah, you can put that on my tombstone. He hated unseated lateral incisors.
Right. Well, we all do, but we all see them. That's what it does. So yes, but see that's part of simplifying the remote monitoring, and part of getting rid of stuff like that is me understanding clear aligner orthodontics. And it's when I can look at this and say, yeah, that's not a problem. That's okay. I over engineered this, or this is how
Right.
this attachment I built works. So honestly, a lot of it comes back to the doc. I mean, we've figured out what to do, because she'll come ask me, what do you want me to do with this? I say, okay, just whatever. Deactivate that tooth. It's fine. Whatever. There's
Right.
10 more trays left. Um,
And everything else is moving beautifully. So just
and
let you finish out.
right. And there's, again, I'm kind of a clean check geek when I do these aligners. I mean, I will change out probably half of those attachments and design my own attachments. I'll over engineer, I'll under engineer. So I can look at those dental monitoring scans and know, yeah, no, it's going to be fine, because I over engineered it a half a millimeter and it looks maybe a little short. It'll be fine.
Right.
Um, so that still, I think, goes back to the doc and the doctor trained. None of this stuff is plug and play, in
Right.
my opinion. I mean, we use so much technology and we have so many of these really cool widgets, but none of them are plug and play. You still have to have people that know how to work them. And as the leader and as the doc, you still have to know how to work them, because
Exactly.
it's up to you.
Exactly. So you got dental monitoring in place. That certainly helps a ton. You have OrthoFi, which again, I am an OrthoFi user. I have a small financial interest in OrthoFi. I've been using it now for a few years and I love it. What are some of the places in your practice that OrthoFi has streamlined your process and helped you? And then I have a follow-up question.
Well, the biggest thing I found with OrthoFi, I minimize staff so much. And I used to have 2 financial coordinators and 1 part-time person that would sit on the phone with insurance companies. And I'm not in network for any insurance companies, but it's still a lot of work and a lot of on hold time. We've eliminated that. We used to always, you go to meetings and you do trainings for how to upgrade your systems, how to make your systems better, how to make your processes better. Now I let OrthoFi or dental monitoring, whoever it is, make those systems better.
Yep.
And then we learn how to use them. So it's standardized, the financial system so much more for me.
Yeah.
It's just organized it to where, I have a financial coordinator leaves. That's a lot of training and a lot of onboarding to get. And the finances are your lifeblood of your practice.
But let's be clear here, as OrthoFi users, you still need somebody to oversee the finances a bit. It's kind of like serving an appetizer rather than a 5-course meal.
Yeah, 100%. And we still have our treatment coordinator does, yes, still spend some time with it, but it's not nearly as much as it was back when with financial coordinators. But yes, you still need a person. It's not plug and play.
No.
And a lot of what it's done for us is it's organized her a lot better. Things, like the pending and the follow-ups and the ability to do same-day starts. But again, it's the ability to do same-day starts. OrthoFi doesn't give you same-day starts. It's how you use OrthoFi to provide that experience for that new patient that can do things like that.
Isn't it funny how before I went to OrthoFi, I thought it was all about the slider. Like the slider. Everything was about the slider. Like the slider is arguably the least important part of our practice. Like patients are going to start or they're not going to start. The start at home feature is really nice. I do like the fact that my TC can follow up with somebody and they ask, hey, we're ready to get started. What do we do next? Well, I'm going to send you an email or click that link you had, and instantly from home, maybe they've already been scanned in our office on the first appointment. Click the link. Down payment is paid, move forward and get going, right? The insurance part of it is really, really nice. I love the fact that they do all that. I love the fact they follow up with the finances with the patient and you're notified. I like the data tracking of it is.
It's interesting. And I'm less of a data guy than most of you guys. I use my handful of statistics and that's awesome. I use that. This is a weird thing to say, but I think too much data analysis stifles your creativity, because you're analyzing what's happened and you're kind of assuming that the way that we did it last year is the way we're going to do it next year. And I struggle with the data analysis more than most do, because yes, I look at obviously production, collection, starts, all that stuff. But the way I'm providing orthodontic care next year will be different than how I did it last year.
Exactly.
And the year after it will be different than last year. So yes, I like the statistics. I get more than I need, to be honest. I have an accountant that yells at me if something really looks stupid on my financial statements. But yeah, it's just organizes and standardizes our financial system. And I always use the term, with the staff. It's like, we have to be prepared for one of us to get hit by a bus, including me. And I said, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I want this practice to do better without me than it did with me. And so we have the systems in place. We try to standardize things so that it's not Bob, it's a business.
Right. Yeah. And I asked that question in Orthopreneurs a few weeks ago. Are you a businessman that does ortho, or are you an orthodontist that owns a business? Right? You just gave the answer from your perspective in a very clear, concise way. So people recognize you can look at really good ortho that you're providing as an orthodontist as an outfunction of your business. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be, I do ortho, oh, and by the way, I own a business, which you're allowed to do. And why do people always mention a bus? Why can't it be like a garbage truck or a motorcycle, an errant cyclist or something? It's always if I get hit by a bus,
I know.
A school bus, a city bus, I don't know. Hopefully whatever it is has got deep pockets, right?
Yeah.
But definitely, it's really interesting to hear how you use this. And last question about what you talked about earlier was, how did you become a texting office? Describe to me what that means and how you transition, because we have a call center and I love the ladies in it and they're amazing. But how do you get away with a texting office?
It took time. And where it starts is that we got the mindset and we got in the habit of, when every patient was in, we said, text us. Hey, you can text us at this number now. It's so much easier to text us. We send out mass emails. I'll do we have Edge, and I'll send out a mass email every month or two, a little video of me, just something, an update, or here's what's going on in the practice. So we sent out several mass emails to all the active patients saying, hey, we got this cool texting platform. And we have Rhinogram. I don't get paid. I'm not an investor. I don't get paid by anybody, but we just kept saying it over and over. And now all of us don't say, yeah, give us a call. We say, shoot us a text. And I think that's the key, is that every person has to say that. And you have to say that from your first contact when someone comes in for an exam. Because most of these people, quite honestly, we're texting the day before or 2 days before their exam, just to introduce ourselves and say, how you doing? Now, if they want a call, we give them one. But we really try to text them first and get them in that habit. And I had to say 99% of everybody just loves that. Once in a while, you get somebody that, can I just call? Or even, can I come in? And they don't want the remote monitoring. But it's been amazing. I mean, 99% of these people, I love that. I can text. That's great. It's so much easier.
And that demographic's only going to get larger.
Exactly.
But how do you tackle the pre-new patient TC contact, or do you not do that? And because it seems to me, and what I'm referring to here is what a lot of people, Tracy Martin talks about, Leanne Panici, a lot of people talk about, before your new patient comes in, have your TC reach out and say, hey, Bob, I'm Glenn. I'm Krieger Orthodontics treatment coordinator. We're going to spend some time together in 2 days. I just want to let you know, and go through whatever story you want to go through. And I know some people will do a video and they'll send that video instead of a call. How do you handle it in your office?
We'll do it through texting, but there are times we often will send a video, or the treatment coordinator will do a little video and then text it to that person. But I would say 98, 99% of those contacts, because yes, we try to talk to every new exam the day before or 2 days before. And we're at a point now where we just get people in within a day or two. We don't make people wait 2 weeks or 3 weeks anymore. So yeah, she'll shoot him a text. Oftentimes she'll do a little video of herself. If I'm there, sometimes we'll do the video with me. And we start them off right from the beginning, getting in the habit of texting us.
Nice. Do you do remote new patient exams?
We do. We use a SmileMate, which is the dental monitoring. It's like Smile Snap or anything. I mean, there's a million nice widgets. And quite honestly, the ones we get, we found have worked very well for us, because we'll often respond very nicely, give them a nice thing and say, hey, Carl will give you a call tomorrow and get you in. Carl's our treatment coordinator. And quite honestly, again, a pretty high percentage of those people, she'll call them and they come in for the in-person exam and they start. So it seems like for us, it's more of just a initial contact. I'm not sure how much we actually sell people on that virtual consult, but it's a great initial contact. We get back to them. She'll talk to them. They decide they like us and they come in. And a lot of people want to do it that way initially. They don't want to have to call you and make an appointment and come sit in your chair initially. If they can do it on their laptop initially, that seems to work great.
Yeah. And here in my office, here in Texas, there were questions about what you can and can't do. And for me, it was very simple. All the virtuals I did, it was very rare where somebody wanted to start, and it was very rare where I wanted to start somebody. Things have evolved and changed a bit, but it's usually, hey, you look fantastic. I'm thinking this, would love to get you in for just a quick CBCT, do a scan, and then, we can get you started that day. And 99 times out of 100, they come in, they like, can I come in right now? Absolutely. Come in right now. We'll get you set up. We got some time if you want to come in. And I mean, what does it take for somebody to have a CBCT and an iTero or what have you scan done? And so, what about the idea of running a practice entirely based upon this stuff? Just, starting something where you just, maybe just use technology together and scrap the whole traditional business model and start anew.
That's essentially what I'm trying to do.
I know. I was just, I saw the smile on your face as I started doing it.
But here's I think the key is still the people. It's not the technology. And especially when you have a limited number of people, you have 3 people. All 3 of those people better believe in what you're doing and believe in the business model and believe in the technology. And that's what makes it work for me is we have a team that believes in it, but still believes we need to build the relationship with the patient, still believes we need to take care of the patient. And that's been the hard part. But once you get there and once you find the right people to put in those positions, that's what makes all this stuff work. Right. It's not plug and play technology, it's still those people. But I got to tell you, I have 3 really excited people that think this is the best thing ever. Our lead clinical person, she works about a half a day from home every week with her 4-year-old kid. She does the dental monitoring. She'll watch the texting on Rhinogram. She thinks it's awesome. I mean, and she's been with me 11 years. So she was with me back in the days when we had 6 or 7 assistants and every chair lined up. She loves this, but you have to find that person that loves this and embraces this. And she honestly, she makes it better than I do every day. She figures out how we use this to a higher level. I don't. I mean, I kind of do what she says at this point.
Don't we all? Don't we all, Bob?
Yeah.
Don't we all just do what they tell us? Which
guess.
Is ideally Ben Fishbein, Amanda Floyd, and Sarah Knowles gave a course recently for Orthopreneurs University. And when I sat once and talked to Amanda, who is such a genius in the way she does her systems, and her emotional intelligence is just off the charts. When I sat and chatted with her about, what are the systems like that you've set up, at the end of the day, in those practices, the doctor is just the doctor. I don't mean that to sound but our job is to treat patients and let everything else get handled by those around us. So, I have to ask a couple of questions about what you said. Number one, who are the three people you have? What are their roles in terms of what are their roles? And the second question is, someone might ask, well, how are you handling phase one, right? Do you do a lot of phase one? You know, you really hate braces. You're not doing a lot of braces. Are you doing phase one or not really?
But the phase ones have decreased because we have more of the pedo ortho model in the area now. And I think those phase ones are staying with pedo ortho. Most of my phase ones at this point are an expander and then into Invisalign first. So I'm not confident getting rid of expanders yet. I'm not sure anything else gives you that skeletal expansion. I'm not an airway expert, but I try to educate myself on airway and, you know, that. So I still do expanders, but then I'll go into Invisalign first after that. I don't do any other glued in stuff.
Nice. So your phase ones are not 2x4s,
No,
2x6s, 2x2x4s.
no.
There's
No.
a lot of plastic. And
Yes.
again, if you have non-compliance, do you put them in wires and brackets at that point? If there's non-compliance with the plastic?
Yes. And we've always said that I don't charge for that because I think out of maybe 3,000 patients now, when I've said we won't charge for braces, I think I've done it twice, 2 or 3 times. So I don't even worry about it anymore. It's so
verbal skills and training with the kids.
Well, and that's why, back to like the staff, we call everybody now an ortho coach. And those ortho coaches have their niches and their little areas of expertise. We have, you know, one who's more of like the treatment coordinator who knows the financials better. We have one who's more the clinical, who knows, you know, the clinical systems and the dental monitoring better. But we call everybody an ortho coach because it's come down now to so much of the coaching and the educating rather than, again, being a mechanic and gluing things and clipping things and tying things in. And personally, I feel more like an architect now than I do a mechanic because I'm not building as much. I'm designing it, and then we're letting it happen. So we have ortho coaches, and everybody's an ortho coach. You know, everybody is reasonably equal. I mean, there's not much of a hierarchy anymore because when you have a big staff, you have that hierarchy. You have experienced people, you have inexperienced people, you have people that are just kind of there because you need a warm body to scrub instruments. So now we have, you know, and I tell them, I think at some point they're becoming like PAs. It's almost like they're physician's assistants at this point. And everybody's kind of like a physician's assistant, and they're coaching, they're educating, they're building relationships. And that's the big part of the job. It's not how fast can you tie a wire in anymore, or how fast can you mix glue. And that's how it always used to be.
Yeah, it totally is. Well, I've appreciated the time we've had together. I mean, you've talked about some really amazing things. You know, maybe we'll see you on an Orthopreneurs Summit stage one day, talking about these things. Are you going to be in Austin this year?
I'm not going to be in Austin this year.
It's breaking my heart, Bob.
I'm going to miss this one. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. And I was telling everybody, this is the best one ever. So I'm sorry you're going to miss it. Yeah, we had all that special Chicago sausage. It's going to be there.
Yeah.
I kid. No, but you know, you're truly an inspiration in terms of the way you're using the technology, particularly after 20 years in practice. You're certainly by no means an old man, so to speak, but you know, a lot of people get stuck in the way they do things, and it's just nice to see you move this way. Because, like you said, there's so many good people out there teaching aligners. There's so many good people out there teaching things like dental monitoring or how to use OrthoFi effectively, and there's so many people out there who are using them really, really well. And the best news for people listening or watching is that you've got people like Bob, and you've got dozens of other people out there who are also doing it effectively, well, and differently. And that's the beautiful thing is with technology, you can sort of adapt it as little or as much and the way you want it to be. And
exactly.
If you were talking, which you may be, to a resident who's out there, they're graduating in another couple of months, perhaps, and they're going out into the real world, as a parting gift to them, you're going to give them one piece of advice when it comes to technology and their ortho practice, what would you say to them?
Uh, Clear aligners, remote monitoring, and outsourcing. And it's interesting because I've had this conversation with several of them now. And my advice to them is to look at all this technology that's out there, think about how you can create value for your patient and for your customer. And if you can figure out how this widget can make a better experience for your patient, it's going to probably be a great thing for you, and use that, and how it's going to make your life easier. If you can't figure that out, don't buy it.
Right.
Because just because it's cool doesn't mean it's going to help you. So that's my advice.
Yeah, it's great advice. And so residents out there, pay attention, and younger docs, and even older docs like me, right? There's a lot to be learned here. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for your time today, Bob. And however we see each other, I will pick your brain even more. So thanks for being here.
Well, thank you. It's been fun. Thanks, Glenn.
My pleasure.